Jay Horowitz with a special edition of Amazing Conversations with probably the only guy who's been here as long as I've been here, Mark. Between the two of us, Marc Levine, chief photographer in the Mets, we have close to 80 years of experience between the two of us. We're old, man.
I'm feeling it a little bit, but not ready to stop doing anything. I feel just the way I was motivated all those years ago when you hired me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was actually hired you, but and I guess Frank had to approve my hire.
Yeah. We had I had an interview with you. I had been freelancing here for magazines and the card companies and such. So I was used to you giving me credentials and all of that stuff, but set up an interview with you. I think it was 10:30 in the morning. We sat for about an hour and a half, looking at photos, talking about, the job itself and everything else. Then I left, and back then, we had no cell phones, so there was no way, right, of you getting a hold of me right away. So we had the answering machine with the little teeny cassette tape in it. When I got back home, there was one message, and it was a message from you saying, could you come back again tomorrow because I need you to sit with Frank Cashin. And I took that as a great sign.
Yeah.
And
Did you have a bow tie on, Mark?
the next day, Frank was in full regalia with the bow tie, sat across from his desk, and he gave you the okay to hire me. And the one thing that I definitely remember, always will stand out, is I got up to shake hands, and he held on to my hand, and he said, with his voice, I can't do the great imitation.
Yeah.
You're better. You're better than I am. And he said, I wish you good luck this season, but also I want you to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, right.
And I've just loved thinking back on those times. I miss Frank a lot, and I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, Mike. Actually, before we get into your career here, you go back with the Mets. You showed me a picture where you had a picture of Tug McGraw on the field at Shea.
Yeah. I've got a Polaroid shot of Tug and I don't even believe I was 15 years old yet on the field. Friend of mine, Mitch, was a photographer as well, and brought me down on the field, introduced me to Tug. Turned out also that the little bullpen car that had the little Mets hat on it was driven by a guy named Al, and was from my neighborhood in Brooklyn as well. So then every time I came down, and Al used to speed me around as fast as that little golf cart could go. And then that's how I got my start. Coming here and just shooting regularly, and I started as an assistant here for photographers and freelancing at 15 years old.
One thing I admire about the way you do it, Mark, you struck a personal relationship with a lot of the guys. Like me, it's not just a job. You get to know a lot of the guys. You're out there. It's like when I was in the press box, I had cover. You don't have any cover. You're out in the rain. And
out in the elements.
Any elements. But, how did you we'll go into it a little bit, how did you begin to strike relationships with the guys? Was it just a job for you? You knew them, you knew their families, you knew the ins and outs of everybody?
Yeah, I think, when we relate to what's going on now with social media and cell phones that have great cameras in them and everything else, and I flash back to those first few years, when players wanted photos, wanted their families shot, their holiday cards, and things like that, they came to me, and
you always went above and beyond.
That was the way we developed relationships. Yeah. It wasn't just taking action pictures and being there, in the photo box or in the stands, for games. The players themselves would always reach out, and that was really the only way that they were able to get professional photos, was to look out for me. And over the years, just an amazing.
A lot of close friends.
Oh, my God, an amazing array of people. I have said, for years that, what has kept me here, aside from the work and the output of images and stuff like that we need, in our business, but it's really been the relationships, not just with the players, with the staff here as well. But I go back with so many players that have a huge personal space in my life, that I've celebrated things with them and their families, Johnny Franco and people like that. And, you just can't put a price tag on that.
I always get asked the question, who's your favorite all-time player? I can't answer that because You get into trouble with that. And you just can't pick one guy.
The
out.
list is
It's endless.
The list is endless, and it really goes back to my first few years, and then it also goes back to more recent times. Like David Wright and people like that who are still extremely close to me.
Well, I want to show the audience some pictures we have. This is your first day on the job, Mr. Levine. This is it. So we're setting up in Port St. Lucie on a job. We take a team picture. All hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
But let's tell the audience what happened. The week before, Darryl and Keith had a little misunderstanding about some things.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the team picture, boom.
Yeah, there was a little the contract stuff going on, with
All-star
Darryl
voting.
and Keith and all this other stuff and everything else. And, for me, I wasn't really going to be part of that part of the story. I came into Port St. Lucie on literally was my first day.
Stay at the Holiday Inn?
Physically on the, US 1, the old Holiday Inn, and came to Media Day, which was the next morning, and we were supposed to do the player portraits, which we still do to this day on Media Day. Right. But back then, what we also did was we did a team photo, even though we did one later on in the season, a revised one. We did a team photo that had everybody in it since they were going to be in uniform that day, et cetera. And had myself up on a ladder getting ready to do the first team photo.
Boom.
I know you had your clipboard getting everybody seated the way they were supposed to be seated, Davey Johnson in the middle. And then basically, what looked like a UFC match was taking place. And I just remembered thinking to myself, I was 12 years old or so when I started to think that this was the job that I wanted to have my whole life. And here's what is unfolding on my first day.
You know who was Gary Cohn's first day too. He didn't know what to expect. So I got notes of congratulations from my peer brethren. We had more publicity with that team photo than any team photo went all across the nation.
It's true. If people
the fighting Mets.
If people Google it still, there's some video clips and everything else because a lot of the media was there that day for this picture.
I always tell people it was planned, but that's not true. Well, this picture is not. This is from the '89 team. Was this your first team picture?
That was the first team. That was that day after we got everybody separated and seated again.
It was calm.
We had calm for probably about 10 exposures on my camera.
Yeah.
Back then it was film, so you didn't know what you were getting. You couldn't check the digital like you can now. And then literally after the last frame was taken, Darryl got up, full uniform, walked out of camp.
Yeah.
And those were the headlines the next day, was all that stuff.
It was great. I mean, and you and Gary might say, what the hell did I get myself into? Okay, I want to jump ahead to 2001, to 9/11. I've been with the Mets a long time, too. And it's a nice picture of Johnny Franco here. Something you put on my tombstone is what the Mets did for the help the city heal. You were a big part of that, taking pictures all over the place, charity events, parties. What do you remember back about those days? The Sue Lucci in the
2000, the day of 9/11. A lot of us were here, even though the team was on the road in Pittsburgh. We were here because we were going to have a sponsor event here at the ballpark. So most of us who were here actually put the TV on after we had heard what happened with the first plane, and then actually saw the second plane hit from here, and then unfortunately watched the buildings, as they crumbled. And honestly, most of us, I think, thought we were just not seeing what we were seeing. We were, of course, all upset, hearing planes, that had to be grounded. We're across the street from LaGuardia Airport. But we kind of scattered to make sure that, our families were safe, et cetera, and everything else. And then literally it was only a matter of a few hours later, we were back here because the parking lot became a staging area.
We sent supplies down. And
so
don't you be proud? For me, the ring was nice and everything, but this being a part of something like that is something I'll always remember.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I mean, I tried to wear two hats. I wanted to take pictures so that we could record this event, to make sure that we had it in our history because it was very important to the organization and the city, but also to put the camera down as well and volunteer to make sure that trucks were being unloaded and loaded and things that needed to get down to ground zero did. And then finally, a few days later, obviously, when
I mean,
baseball
the picture
came
of John
back.
just captures the whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, John, obviously, I've known John pretty much my whole life, and he's a true New Yorker and was really hit hard by this, as most of us were. And, there's some emotion in that picture, a little sadness, etc. It ended up
like a determination.
it ended up going to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown,
Right.
and the picture was on display in the Hall of Fame for a while as part of a 9/11.
I think it's in the 9/11
exhibit.
museum too. Right?
Yeah, I believe so as well. And but very, very rough times, for all of us. But then that game, with Mike's home run and the way the city just came together, and two teams going out on the field before the
Hugging
game,
each
each other. I had never seen
And
that
Bobby
ever
V and
before.
Bobby Cox were not exactly the best of friends.
No, they weren't. But the thing with Bobby Valentine was another person who
He gave everything.
It hit
He
home
gave-
with him. He had friends that he had lost.
We were jumpers.
And he had tears in his eyes basically the whole night. As
And
did
your
most of us.
photographs really helped capture the whole thing. Let me jump ahead to 2006. Great year, disappointing year. What a great picture of Endy making that catch. So we make the catch. We had we get out of the inning, the bottom of the inning. We have bases loaded, 1 out. We don't score, and we lose the game in seven games. The catch. If we had won this, Endy would have been a folk hero, but unfortunately we didn't.
Yeah.
But what a great picture of going on the wall and jumping, catching the ball. What do you remember about that night?
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of electricity in the air that night. Like everybody else in New York, we had such a great team that, we all thought was definitely headed.
90 plus games we won.
Yeah, we headed for a world championship. And, a catch in the outfield, especially a few years back, was not the easiest thing to capture. And it easily could have been not on his glove, over his glove,
Right.
and then it's a non-picture. At that time, you don't know whether we are going to win the game or not. And,
I would have bet my life we would have won. After you made the catch, there's no way
absolutely.
we lose the game.
After I took the picture and thinking that we were going to win the game,
no way we
I
lose.
just kept thinking about Tommy Agee's catches
Yeah.
in '69 and how important
Yeah,
they
they
were,
were.
to that team and to that championship. And I just said, you know what? I know I'm not the only one who got this picture because most of the photographers, were kind of focused on the ball as it was going out. But I really thought that could be representative of
Right.
what our 2006 season
Yeah,
was.
it's
And
so close.
it's a great catch.
Yeah, it's
still.
a great
It's
catch.
a great catch.
So another great day, closing of Shea Stadium in 2008. We were eliminated, unfortunately, before the celebration.
Yeah, had my suitcase packed
To go,
ready to go.
And I think 2 or 3 things had to happen. I think Milwaukee won and whatever. I forget.
Yeah,
to
the
say.
combination of
And
things
we
was
lost
not
to
in
the
our
Marlins
favor.
again.
Again.
On the last day.
Yes, yes.
And we did the celebration, and the picture of Mike and Tom waving to the crowd. What a great picture. And unfortunately, Tom isn't with us, but what an iconic picture. And people stayed. Nobody left.
People stayed, and it's funny because for me, the most often asked question, it's probably most photographers in general, but the most often asked question for me with all my years here is, what's your favorite picture? Which is, it's very hard. Your pictures are like your
or your
babies.
favorite player.
Yeah, but I will always tell them that this is my favorite
yeah.
picture. It's not an action picture. It's a picture that means something to me. It means something to the Mets organization. It meant a lot to both Tom and Mike after
Yeah.
they saw it. And, it really just encompasses what the feeling was saying goodbye to Shea. Because that's how we kind of branded that day. It was Shea goodbye.
Mark, that was my home for 29 years. And people called it dump. You know what? It was our dump. It was times, but it was something homey about Shea. A lot of,
I miss it all the time.
Yeah.
I think most of us who were there as
Yeah.
many years say that we spent more hours in
not
that
many
ballpark.
of us left who worked at Shea.
There's not many, but we spent more
Yeah,
hours
yeah.
in that ballpark than we did anywhere else in
Yeah.
our lives.
Yeah,
and it did become our home.
Do you remember how it shook? When in '86 or
Because the way the ballpark was built and the fact that the the seats and were on rollers so that when the Jets played, it can be moved. The people got up and they knew if they bounced up and down that whole ballpark was going to bounce up and down.
I mean, it was a great day and disappointing. We just the last day of the year, boom, and we got criticized a lot. Could you do this before? But it wouldn't have the impact. You'd have to cram it in. And, I mean,
closing a ballpark or closing a facility of any kind and then having an event afterwards is kind of anticlimactic. Yeah. And we knew that it's 50-50 that we're going to win or we're going to lose. Yeah. But like you said, the fans were there, the fans stayed, and I think it was a great tribute. And for me, it was just a fantastic moment. And then 2 days later, Sports Illustrated had the photo on page 2 of the magazine, and that gave it national attention. Was that the game
when in 19 Ryan Church hit a ball to right field? It almost didn't get out. I mean, I forget.
I don't remember the details because we had so much other going on.
Yeah, but I think we were behind. But when he had a ball, we almost went out and it was on the warning track. But so another happy day. Opening of Citi Field. What a wonderful picture that is.
Yeah, that's I just call it red sky. I mean, it's again. It's not an action picture. It's a picture that still evokes emotion. It was funny. It was, our first year at Citi Field, and it was on the day of my birthday. And I was looking forward to that game because we played the Yankees, and we had just the most intense rainstorm that whole afternoon into the start of the game. The game was being delayed, and then all of a sudden, the sun just kind of dipped below those clouds. And it was only a matter of a few minutes that it gave this appearance as if the sky was on fire. And from that day until this day, I've never seen another sky like that.
It looks like it was manufactured.
And again, it's just one of those moments for me that, these, like I said, these pictures are like my babies, and when I see something like that, it still evokes emotion in me.
Mark, let me stop before going to some pictures. People might not know what a chief photographer is. I know what you do, is how many hours you work. There's so many more elements. You shoot the games, you do the charity events, you do community outreach. People, you're available. Tell me what a snapshot, what a photographer does with the club.
As the years have gone by, obviously the responsibilities and the different things that go along with running the photography here has changed. We have so many community events. We have so many things where we're kind of helping out partnerships and sponsorships with signage and things that go up on scoreboards during the game, and fan photos and ballpark images and all of the other things that, kind of encompass not just taking pictures of the 9 innings or more.
There's so much more
of a game. Yeah. It has become just a varied array of different types of photography. You can be shooting portraits all morning, and then all of a sudden you're doing, pictures of, the puppies that are running around on the field that you love so much from North Shore Animal League or things like that. And, I think that's also what makes the job so amazing to me, is that there are no 2 days that are alike.
Yeah, that's what I always loved about baseball.
Love it.
And you have 2 people on your staff. I mean,
yes, like we've said, as things have become a little bit more widespread, the need for more coverage and to have people in different areas of the game at the same time is great. And to have my 2 other photographers, Liz and Jessica, if it's a tie game in the bottom of the 9th inning and we know that there's a chance for a walk-off, the thing that we're able to do now that we couldn't do years ago is have people positioned in different places. So everything from a walk-off home run or a walk-off base hit, we've got celebratory images, we've got Gatorade buckets, and all the different things that, especially now with social media, that we can get out there right away, and the behind-the-scenes things that the fans want to see.
Mark, I want to jump back. I want to talk about one of our favorite guys, this great name Gary Carter, who died at the early age of 57 years old. Tell me, I struck up a relationship with the Carter family. Gary's mother died of leukemia at an early age. And how does the progression go? How you got involved with the leukemia charity and Marty Cedar from leukemia and the golf event you're involved with?
Yeah, when we also talk about, people who have had a major impact on my life, Gary is really right up there at the top, because for the 36 years that I have been involved with the Mets, I have spent a lot of the spare time that I do have with philanthropic activities. I have been involved with so many different charities over
You
the
bring
years.
people to games, like you auction off
Yeah,
to raise
yeah.
money.
But the way things started was, in my first spring, Gary, who was with us at the time, but also living in West Palm Beach, was having an annual golf tournament, and it used to be sponsored by Sweet and Low. And he had said to me, is there any chance that you could come and just kind of donate a couple of hours by taking some photos? There's going to be some athletes here. There's going to be some other VIPs and stuff like that. And it was for Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It was really to honor his mom after all those years. And I went. And then afterwards, a couple days later, I gave him the photos, and I sat with him in the dugout in Port St. Lucie, and we just talked about things like that. We talked about honoring people in our past who have passed away of diseases. We've talked about how hard hit a lot of his friends were, and other people that we've known in our lives, and the things that we can do, and the things that we can use our talent and time to donate to further these causes. And like a little light bulb just went off in my head. And from that day forward, I worked with him as much as I could until obviously he retired. And then I got involved with so many other charities. And, at the present time, the last 25 years have been more dedicated to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I'm an executive board member. And I really try to funnel any extra time that I have to some of these causes. And when people don't think that they can make a difference because they can't write a check for $50,000 or
Right.
$10,000, it has nothing to do with it. You can make a difference because of your time and your dedication.
Right.
And I think that is something that I really thank God that I met Gary, and he instilled that in me.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite guys. I mean, the kid with a great name. He was a kid. He loved the game and everything with it. So we to go June 1st, 2012. Johan Santana. Great picture of Terry Collins. Almost had a heart attack that night because his pitch count went up to 130 pitches that game. Well, some of us who were there a long time never thought this day would come.
Yeah, look, being
All
a
the
Met
pitchers,
fan.
Ryan and
No, being a Met fan my whole life, I basically was waiting for Nolan, Seaver, all
David
these guys,
Cone,
David Cohn, Doc, all these guys to pitch a no-hitter, for us as a fan, and of course be there as a photographer if it was possible. Johan, of course, when he took the mound, he always had the stuff to do it. Whether he was going to do it that night, I think people were a little shaky as the pitch count got up.
Right.
And, of course, Terry, was a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
For me, my thing was to try to make sure that I was in a position to get the most out of this photographically if he was going to pitch the no-hitter. So I kind of hovered behind home plate so that I can be staring directly at him. We don't have a low scoreboard here, so you couldn't really see the line score with the 0 hits. But that wasn't as important to me as getting his reaction.
Yeah, I have to-
And then after jumping out, with the scrum on the field and waiting for him to salute the crowd, I just tried to, out of the corner of my eye, I saw that Terry was standing out
Yeah.
there. And to me, at that moment, I said to myself, Terry was a big story
Yeah.
in this. And
Gigantic
people
story.
weren't going to maybe realize that until a few days afterwards.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that in some way he was part of that photo. And
It's great.
For me, it was great. Johan loved it. I think he blew it
Yeah.
up and hung it in his house. A couple of days later or a couple of weeks later, I think we put it on T-shirts and
Yeah.
we had Johan Santana night.
Yeah, I mean, Terry almost had a heart attack that night. He He wasn't going to take him out, but it was going higher and higher and higher. But like, I mean, his wave, such a great personality, and do that.
I'm
But,
waiting for the next one.
yeah. Well, we'll hope this year. Another one of our favorite guys, David Wright. A picture extended with him with a ball and on a David Wright on a bus. I always tell people, Mark, as good a player he was 100 times better person.
David is a special person. Knowing him from basically the time that he signed his contract until this day, he really has not changed.
Not at all. Very unassuming, doesn't ask for anything.
He is an amazing individual. He's been a really good friend to me over the years. Another person that I did get involved with his foundation when he founded that and did as much as I could. But to take an action shot, which, like out of all the things that you've seen so far from me, most of the other photos are not as much action. They're just pictures that evoke emotion and things like that. This picture, when it was chosen to be on one of these double-decker city tour buses, right. I don't know, but for me, I just got such butterflies that day knowing that this bus was going to be tooling around Manhattan. And, there's your photo, on the side of a bus.
Yeah, it was great. So
he loved it as well and everything else.
David's not an ego guy either.
He is not an ego guy. And he, like I said, he has stayed close. My daughter, as for her undergraduate senior project, needed to work with somebody who had a sports injury. She's going to be a physical therapist. And David volunteered to be the subject. Yeah, he has been that way, like I said, his whole career.
What do you remember of his retirement night in Tuesday when he had a packed crowd? And
I remember...
And you made a photo album for his family.
Yes. I remember following him that day from the time that he got out of the car in the parking lot throughout the entire night, of course, jumping on the field. And I do remember when he took the microphone and he was standing out there kind of doing a 360. I think it was the only time for me that my legs started to go weak because he was saying goodbye to us as an organization.
A young guy, too. He should be playing right now.
Absolutely should be playing. But, he holds a special place in the hearts of all Met fans. And I think, again, if you do this Mount Rushmore of Met players, David's carved into it.
Yeah, and Mark, you and I a lot. I mean, we based our careers on a personal relationship, but I think it makes it more rewarding what we do. It's not, okay, it's 5 to 5, I got to leave now. I mean, the guys call you for favors, stay in touch, and like you said before, that what makes the job good for you, right? I mean, after all these years, for me, it does.
Yeah. I mean, going into a job like this, most jobs in sports. There is no 9 to 5. It's not one of those jobs. You're basically devoting the major chunk of your life to the job. And, I might be the last car out of the parking lot on some nights. There was a night I remember, I want to say we had like a Tuesday night game into a Wednesday day game. And the Tuesday night game went either 18 innings, might have been against the Padres or whatever it was. And I just remember kind of rolling up my jacket and sleeping in the office. I know you have slept in the office many times.
I sleep in the locker room all the
time.
But
you know what? The next morning, daylight comes.
It invigorates you.
You can't wait to get out on the field again. And that's the feeling that I have now before the first pitch of every game. I mean, I have butterflies when my feet touch that dirt on the warning track.
And people don't understand, I switched jobs a little bit, but when you work a 14-game homestand, that's grueling at the end, and we're, being out there. And
It is. Most of the time, it's the elements that are the key factor in how exhausted you are. If you've got 2 or 3 rain delays in the middle of it, or it is April or September, where I've got the 5 layers on and the hand warmers and stuff like that, then you're exhausted after the 13 or 14 games. But you know what? If the weather is okay and, we go through a 10-3 homestand and everything else
Makes
like
it
that.
all worthwhile.
You don't even want the team to go on the road.
Mark, you in favor of the runner in the 10th inning cuts down on some of the extra inning games, right? I mean,
Well, you know what? I don't particularly care for the runner on second base. I think that, let it play out,
Yeah.
and whatever happens, happens. And for me, I remember being, a kid and my dad taking me to as many Met games as I physically could go to. I wanted every game to go extra innings.
Yeah.
And when there was a doubleheader scheduled, because now doubleheaders are really only when there's a
Yeah.
canceled game or a
Yeah.
postponed game. But back in the day, you had a Sunday doubleheader. Those were the first games that I circled because I wanted to be here for as many innings as possible.
well, you've been a great friend all these years. You still love your job, enthusiastic, and hope we can get in the World Series in Flushing this year.
I hope so, but the best part is the people that I work
Yeah.
with, and the fact that you and I are still working side by side.
Yep.
And I love seeing you when I walk into the office
I'm
every
proud
day.
that we got to touch on one or two guys before I go. One of our dear friends, Jimmy Plumber, never got the chance to work at Shea. And tell people to me, Jimmy Plumber was the Mr. Met. He was what it's all about.
Yeah. I had a few. I love mentoring now. People in the photography world, but also just people in our organization in general who want to hear some advice or want to talk about, the motivation and everything else to keep going with an organization. But when I started, and I was the only one, here with my job, I was looking to a couple of other people to kind of mentor me as to what to expect, not on the photographic side, but just on the baseball side. And Jimmy Plummer,
Bob
Mann, who again, his famous story was, when the Mets first started, he was selling tickets and keeping the money in a cigar box
I
at
remember.
the Roosevelt Hotel. And he told me all these great stories. He called me kid all the time because when I was starting out, I was young, and I used to come in, and on Sunday mornings, he would say, "Come down to my office," bobbleheads all over his office.
Galore.
And, smoking like a chimney, so there was a cloud coming out of his office. But he would give me the little ins and outs of, where to look for certain things in the ballpark and where people would congregate and things like that. And then Jimmy Plummer, who at the time was in charge of our promotions, but Plum, as we affectionately called him, was a baseball lifer. He started out
little joker.
as a bat boy,
in Marion, Virginia.
in Marion, Virginia.
Right.
And there's pictures of him with Nolan Ryan was on that team, and there's Plum as a bat boy.
Yeah.
But we would stay after games, and just talk.
Jimmy was the best. Jimmy was the best.
Practical joker. So I never knew what to expect.
Yeah.
I never knew where he was going to park my car in the
Plum would
parking lot.
strike.
Yeah. Yes. So, going back over my 36 years, like I said, it's been a combination of no 2 days ever really
Right, I
being
agree.
the same. But
And
the
the
people that I have
agree.
worked with and still work
That's
with
why
to
you and I
this
so
day.
much alike. We love the job. But
Absolutely.
been a good friend, and I appreciate your time, man.
Always, my man.
Thanks, Mark.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.